Ever find your mind just stuck in overdrive? Trapped in those endless what-if scenarios, or maybe replaying conversations again and again.
Oh, yeah, that relentless mental chatter.
Exactly. It really pulls us away from enjoying life right here, right now. So today, we're diving deep into Nick Trenton's really insightful guide, The Overthinking Cure.
Trenton's an accomplished researcher in behavioral psychology, and he offers a pretty clear path to calming that inner storm.
Right. And our mission in this deep dive is essentially to give you a shortcut. We want to extract the most vital nuggets from his scientifically backed techniques.
Yeah, the idea is to help you transform your mindset, get a handle on your thoughts, and really truly make a home in the here and now, as he puts it.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Exactly. We're going beyond just, defining overthinking. We'll explore why it grips us and, crucially, how you can actively start to rewire your brain for, well, more peace.
Like getting an actionable toolkit.
Precisely. Moving from just recognizing those unhelpful thought patterns to actually cultivating a more accepting and present mindset.
So to really tackle overthinking, we first need to understand it, right? How does Trenton actually define what overthinking is? What does it look like day to day?
Well, Trenton calls it rumination. He describes it as that unproductive cycle of repeatedly picking over details, obsessing over possibilities, and rehearsing imaginary scenarios without leading to productive thoughts.
Okay, so it's different from just thinking a problem through.
Totally different. That's the key distinction. Problem solving moves you forward, right? Rumination keeps you stuck, just draining your emotional energy.
And what usually triggers it?
Often it's anxieties about the future or trying to dissect things that happened in the past. Sometimes it creates what he calls an illusion of control.
So you feel like you're doing something useful.
Exactly. But really, you're just spinning your wheels mentally.
And this leads us right into Trenton's really foundational concept. The difference between being proactive versus reactive. Can you break that down?
Absolutely. So proactive individuals, according to Trenton, take responsibility for how they respond to things. They have what psychologists call an internal locus of control.
Meaning they feel like they have some agency.
Right. They believe they have agency over their own lives and reactions rather than feeling like, they're just tossed about by circumstances. They focus on solutions, on opportunities, and they tend to cultivate an inner calm.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Trenton even quotes that famous line, "Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you deal with it."
And reactive people.
Reactive individuals, on the other hand, often feel victimized. They let external situations dictate their emotions, which almost inevitably leads to more anxiety and stress.
So shifting to proactive thinking. That's where the power lies.
It really is. It gives you back your sense of personal agency, which can significantly reduce anxiety. It's empowering.
That feels like a really profound shift. So if being reactive is the trap, what are some specific habits Trenton points out that keep us stuck there? And how do we start dismantling them?
He highlights two big ones: blaming and complaining, and then what he calls the if-only trap.
Okay, blaming and complaining. We all do that sometime.
We do.
Yeah.
But Trenton argues that complaining, while it might feel good for a second, actually puts you in a disempowered, reactive state. He puts it bluntly, nothing good ever comes of complaining.
Ouch. So what's the alternative?
True empowerment, he says, comes from recognizing your options and actually taking action, not just, venting about things.
And the if-only trap. That sounds incredibly familiar.
It really is. This is all about procrastination and daydreaming, those phrases like, "if only I had," or "one day I'll finally." Trenton says these mental loops lead straight to anxiety.
Why anxiety?
Because they keep us stuck in wishing instead of doing. Dreams are great, but they should inspire action, not just stay as unfulfilled wishes floating around in our heads.
Does he offer any practical tips for that?
Yeah, he suggests keeping a complaints journal. Write down the issues bothering you, but here's the key part. Commit to addressing them somehow by the end of the day.
So it forces action.
Exactly. It's about moving from that passive wishing state to active engagement.
I'm curious, though, while this proactive mindset sounds incredibly empowering, stopping blame, taking action, it's not always simple, is it? Does Trenton acknowledge the limitations?
That's a really important point. And yes, while his framework really champions personal agency, it's crucial to acknowledge reality. Systemic issues, mental health conditions, they can genuinely limit how much influence someone has.
So it's not about pretending those don't exist.
Not at all. It's about recognizing and maximizing your agency within your specific sphere of influence, finding that balance between acknowledging external factors and owning your response.
Okay, that makes sense. So with that balance in mind, what does this proactive mindset mean for how we deal with change itself? Change can be a huge trigger for overthinking.
Definitely. Training urges us to be responsive, not reactive to change, instead of seeing change as this scary threat that triggers anxiety.
Which it often does.
Right. We can choose to view it as an opportunity for growth. We always have options in how we respond, and that choice itself is empowering. He really emphasizes flexibility here.
Flexibility like adaptability.
Yeah, adaptability, curiosity, learning from failures. He contrasts it perfectly. Reactive. Change is scary. Proactive. I trust myself to engage with change productively and welcome the ways it can help me evolve. That shift in perspective is really the goal.
That's a powerful reframe. Now, Trenton introduces another really interesting strategy he calls mental distance. What exactly does he mean by that? How can just creating distance help us get perspective?
Mental distance is basically about intentionally stepping back from overwhelming emotions. It helps foster a more relaxed, proactive mindset.
Stepping back. How?
Well, it allows for clearer thinking about your options and reduces that frantic sense of urgency you get when you're deep in overthinking mode. And crucially, Trenton emphasizes it's not about numbing your emotions.
Ah, okay. That's important.
Very. It's about engaging with your feelings constructively, but, with enough space so you can maintain clarity and keep your goals in focus. You're observing the emotion, not drowning in it.
So creating space, not denial.
Yeah.
Got it. How does Trenton suggest we actually create this distance day to day? Are there different kinds?
Yeah, he breaks it down into 4 main types, which is quite helpful.
Okay.
First, there's spatial distance. This is pretty straightforward, physically removing yourself from an environment, like stepping out of a tense meeting for a moment, or just taking a walk when your thoughts are racing.
Makes sense. Get some air.
Exactly. Second is social distance. This means creating a bit of emotional separation from certain individuals, maybe altering relationship dynamics slightly, or just taking some space from someone who consistently triggers stress for you.
That can be tricky but necessary sometimes.
Definitely. Third is temporal distance. This is about recognizing that emotions are temporary, reminding yourself this feeling, this intensity, it won't last forever. As Trenton notes, when we're reactive and anxious, time can feel like it's standing still.
Right. That perspective helps. And the last one.
The last one is hypothetical distance. This actually uses our imagination. You envision alternative scenarios or outcomes, which helps you approach challenges more proactively, less fearfully.
It's interesting how our minds, which often cause the overthinking, can also be the tool to solve it. How does Trenton suggest we actively use our imagination for this?
He has some brilliant techniques for that. One is called advise a friend.
Okay.
You frame your current problem as if it belongs to a close friend who's asking you for advice. Trenton's insight here is really powerful.
How so?
By externalizing it, looking at it from that outside perspective, you often bypass your own emotional filters. You might suddenly see the issue isn't as huge as it felt, or the solution becomes much clearer. Like he says, it's easy to see what the best course of action is when it's somebody else's problem.
That is so true. We're always geniuses with other people's problems.
Yeah.
What else can imagination do here?
Well, you can also picture another version of yourself. Think about how your future self, maybe 5 or 10 years from now, would look back on this current problem.
To get that long-term perspective.
Exactly. It helps ease anxiety because you realize the present stress is temporary and your future self probably got through it just fine. And then there's reframing perceptions. This involves mindfulness, acknowledging thoughts and feelings without judgment, and then actively reframing sensations. For example, those pre-presentation jitters. Instead of labeling them fear, maybe reframe them as excitement or energy.
That reframing takes practice, I imagine.
It does. Now, thinking about this detachment, while using imagination is powerful, could it potentially lead someone to suppress their emotions? Just push things down. That's a really valid concern, and it's important to address. The key is using these tools for clarity and gaining perspective, not as a way to avoid or deny genuine feelings.
It's about creating space to choose not to numb out.
Precisely. The goal is healthy processing, finding strategies that work for you without shutting down emotionally. It's a fine line sometimes.
Okay. Now, a central pillar in Trenton's approach, something he calls our anti-anxiety superweapon, is acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. Can you unpack ACT for us? Why is it so powerful?
Yeah, ACT, as Trenton presents it, is incredibly practical. At its core, it's about two things: acceptance of what you genuinely cannot control, and commitment to taking action that aligns with your deepest values.
Acceptance and commitment.
Right. He puts it clearly. We accept what we cannot control. We commit to taking action with the things we can in order to better our lives. A really key part of this is developing mindfulness and the observing self.
The observing self. What's that?
Think of it as the calm, wise witness inside you. It's the part of you that can watch your thoughts, feelings, and sensations come and go without getting totally swept away by them.
Like watching clouds drift by.
Kind of, yeah. It's that unchanging, non-judgmental awareness that isn't harmed by whatever's happening. Developing this helps you cultivate openness, awareness, and presence.
And he mentioned something called experiential avoidance related to ACT.
Yes, exactly. Trenton explains that a lot of our anxiety actually comes from experiential avoidance. That's basically resisting, fighting, or trying to suppress unwanted thoughts and feelings.
Which usually just makes them stronger, right?
Often, yes. ACT flips that. Instead of fighting, it encourages acceptance and active engagement with those internal experiences, even the uncomfortable ones. The ultimate goal isn't necessarily to eliminate discomfort, but to strengthen that observing self.
Which leads to more flexibility.
Right, what they call psychological flexibility. This allows you to engage more fully with the present moment and handle life's challenges more effectively without being derailed by every difficult thought or feeling.
Okay, so how do we actually get to that present moment? How do we contact the present, as Trenton puts it?
Well, Trenton really hammers home that all real awareness, all our power to make decisions, exists only in the here and now, not in the past, not in the future.
Seems obvious, but we forget it constantly.
We really do. He says simply, in ACT, all you have is the present. The future hasn't arrived. The past is long gone. To anchor yourself there, he recommends grounding techniques.
Like ways to pull yourself back.
Exactly. Using your body as an anchor because your body only ever exists now. A really simple and affordable one he suggests is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique.
Oh, I think I've heard of this one.
It's great. You just pause and identify. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
Ah, using all the senses.
Right. It immediately pulls you out of your head and into your direct sensory experience of the present moment.
That 5-4-3-2-1 technique is brilliant for just resetting. Now, what's really fascinating is how this connects to Trenton's idea of cognitive diffusion. He argues that our thoughts aren't always solid truths, but more like, what does he say, representations.
Exactly. Cognitive diffusion is all about recognizing that thoughts and perceptions are just representations, images, symbols, or memories, and not absolute truths or controls over our lives. Our minds are constantly telling us stories.
And we tend to believe them unquestioningly.
That's cognitive fusion. That's when we mistakenly fuse with those stories, equating a thought with reality. Like thinking, I am a failure, instead of, I'm having the thought that I'm a failure. Big difference.
Huge difference. So diffusion is untangling that.
Yes, dismantling that fusion, seeing thoughts for what they are. Just stories we tell ourselves. As Trenton puts it, when we become aware that our thought about a situation and the situation are two different things, we diffuse.
And this allows for acceptance.
Precisely. It makes space for acceptance, which, again, isn't about liking or condoning what's happening. It's simply acknowledging reality without resistance, just recognizing what is. He calls it making space for experiences or expansion.
Okay, so we've worked on acceptance. We've diffused from our thoughts. What's the next step? How do we put this into practice?
That brings us to committed action. Once you have some clarity, maybe through diffusion and acceptance, and you've connected with your values, the next step is to engage in actions driven by those values.
Actions aligned with what matters to you.
Right. Trenton gives us a simple way to remember the whole process with the ACT acronym itself. A, accept your internal experience, thoughts, feelings in the present moment. C, choose a valued direction, what matters to you. T, take action in that direction.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's say you feel sad because you weren't invited to something. You accept the feeling of sadness without fighting it. You choose a valued direction, maybe kindness and self-compassion or connection. Then you take action, perhaps by reaching out to another friend or doing something kind for yourself instead of just dwelling on the rejection.
So it's purposeful movement.
Exactly. Purposeful movement aligned with the person you want to be.
We've covered identifying rumination, but Trenton offers some surprising advice about our thoughts themselves, right? Something a bit counterintuitive.
He does. He actually explains why you shouldn't necessarily challenge your thoughts directly.
Really? Because so much advice tells you to argue back against negative thoughts.
Right. But Trenton argues that directly fighting or trying to debunk your thoughts can sometimes backfire. It can actually increase anxiety and create a more judgmental mindset, keeping the overthinking cycle going.
So what does he suggest instead?
Instead of asking, is this thought true? He advises asking a simpler, gentler question. Is this thought helping me in any way?
Shifting from truth to usefulness.
Precisely. The focus moves from whether a thought is good or bad, true or false, to simply whether it's beneficial or unhelpful right now. It's often a much less confrontational and more productive approach.
That's a really interesting reframe. So if we're not directly challenging the thoughts, how do we shift from that unproductive rumination into more empowered action?
Well, Trenton provides several practical strategies for empowerment. First, he says, try to understand the root of your rumination. Often it's that illusion of control we talked about, and work on building tolerance for uncertainty. Easier said than done, but important.
Okay. What else?
Second, practice kind compassion and forgiveness, especially towards yourself. This helps release the grip of past pain or perceived failures. And third, he introduces the really concrete 3M strategy. Move, make, meet.
Move, make, meet. Tell me more.
This trio is fantastic for breaking out of a rumination cycle. Move means get physical, go for a walk, dance, stretch, anything to shift your physical state. Make involves creating something tangible. It could be baking, drawing, gardening, fixing something. It grounds you in the present. And meet means connect with other people, call a friend, have a chat. It provides perspective and breaks isolation.
I like that. Move, make, meet. So instead of just stewing over a bad work presentation.
Exactly. You might go for a run, move, maybe bake some cookies, make, and then call a friend to vent or just chat, meet. It actively shifts your focus and energy.
That's a great practical toolkit. What about a broader framework for handling stress in general? Does he offer something for that?
He does. He outlines the 4 A's of stress management, which provides a really comprehensive approach.
4 A's.
Yeah. First is avoid. Recognize stressors that are unnecessary and learn to say no more often. Protect your time and energy.
Setting boundaries. Important.
Crucial. Second is alter. If you can't avoid the stressor, can you change the situation or your response to it? This might involve direct communication, problem solving, or changing your routine.
Okay. Avoid, alter. What's next?
Third is accept. Sometimes you can't avoid or alter the situation. Here, it's about acknowledging your feelings and the reality of the situation without denying them. This links back to ACT.
Right, acceptance again.
And the fourth A is adapt. This involves shifting your own perspective, expectations, or standards. For instance, if perfectionism is causing stress, adapting might mean adjusting your standards to be more realistic and self-compassionate.
Avoid, alter, accept, adapt. That's a helpful way to think through stressful situations. Now, let's connect this to our inner world. A lot of stress comes from what Trenton calls automatic negative thoughts, ANTs, and cognitive distortions, right?
Absolutely. Automatic thoughts are those beliefs that just pop into our heads, often unexamined, acting like filters on how we see things. And cognitive distortions are common, sort of illogical thought patterns that twist reality, usually making things seem worse.
Can you give some examples of those distortions?
Sure. Trenton describes several common ones. There's magnification, where you exaggerate the importance of one small thing. Like forgetting one minor detail will ruin an entire project.
Yeah, blowing things out of proportion.
Exactly. Then overgeneralization, where you take one negative event and apply it broadly. Like, I failed this test, so I'm going to fail everything.
Okay.
There's also black and white thinking, seeing things only in extremes, good or bad, success or failure, no middle ground. Someone dislikes you completely because they didn't get one joke.
All or nothing thinking.
Right. And a big one is catastrophizing, where you automatically expect the worst possible outcome. You hear about a minor symptom and immediately jump to thinking you have a terrible disease.
We definitely all fall into those traps. So once we start recognizing these patterns in ourselves, how do we actually restructure these thoughts, make them more helpful?
Trenton offers several cognitive restructuring techniques. One powerful method is Socratic questioning.
Like the philosopher.
Exactly. You gently question your assumptions. Ask yourself, what's the evidence for this belief? Is there another way to look at this? Am I confusing a feeling with a fact? It encourages nuance.
Okay, questioning the thought. What else?
There's guided imagery. Using your imagination proactively, maybe rehearsing a challenging event going well, visualizing alternative positive outcomes, or creating a mental safe space you can retreat to.
Using imagination constructively again.
Right. He also strongly recommends keeping a record or diary, specifically using what's sometimes called the two-column technique.
How does that work?
In one column, you write down the situation and the automatic negative thought or distortion. In the second column, you actively challenge that thought and rewrite it into a more balanced, constructive alternative.
So like changing "I'm never good enough"
Yeah.
to something like "I have strengths and weaknesses like everyone. I did my best in that situation, even if it wasn't perfect."
That sounds really practical.
It is. And one more is playing with what if.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just focusing on the negative what ifs, you create two columns. One for the negative worries and one where you deliberately list positive or neutral what ifs. It helps balance your perspective and realize the worst case scenario rarely happens.
It's fascinating how much of this anxiety and overthinking really seems to boil down to judgment, doesn't it? Judging ourselves, judging others. How does Trenton tackle that?
He really emphasizes this. Trenton defines judgment very simply. It's any time we look at what is and what we think should be and make a comparison. This constant measuring against an ideal, he argues, fuels non-acceptance, limits compassion, and narrows our focus.
So how do we turn off that inner judge? He introduces the idea of non-duality as a kind of judgment off switch. It's not about ignoring differences, but about understanding the interconnectedness of things, how opposites often define each other, how everything fits into a larger whole.
That sounds a bit philosophical. How does it work practically?
Practically, it means stepping back from rigid categories of good and bad, right and wrong, and embracing the complexity and full spectrum of experience. This naturally reduces anxiety and boosts compassion because you're not constantly evaluating everything against some narrow standard.
Okay, seeing the bigger picture, the interconnectedness, that makes sense. And this reminds me, he offers two really powerful exercises that seem to put this into practice. What are they?
Yeah, they're great. The first is the "there I go" exercise.
How does that work?
You go to a public place, observe someone you might find yourself judging internally, and then you consciously attribute their perceived features or behaviors to yourself. So if you see someone looking stressed, you think, "there I go, stressed and rushing."
To build empathy and connection.
Exactly. It fosters that sense of common humanity and self-compassion by breaking down the us versus them barrier judgment creates. The second one is the magical power of and.
Replacing but with and.
Precisely. It's a simple linguistic shift with a big impact. Instead of saying, "I want to relax, but I have chores," you say, "I want to relax and I have chores."
How does that?
But often creates conflict or dismissal and allows both things to be true simultaneously. It promotes inclusion and acceptance of multiple perspectives or realities without setting them against each other. I love my job and it's stressful sometimes. Both are valid.
Those are simple but potentially really profound tools. So if we pull back and look at the bigger picture here, maybe the ultimate lesson Trenton offers is about distinguishing between pain versus suffering. What's the critical difference he makes?
This is absolutely a cornerstone of his philosophy. Pain, Trenton clarifies, is just an unavoidable, often fleeting part of being human. Think physical pain like a headache or emotional pain like grief. It happens, it's real, it's usually in the present.
Okay, pain is unavoidable.
But suffering, he argues, is avoidable and is of our own making. Suffering is the mental resistance to the pain. It's the dwelling on it, the why me, the projecting it into the future, the stories we layer on top of the raw pain itself.
So pain is the event. Suffering is our reaction to it.
Largely, yes.
Yeah.
He emphasizes pain is a natural, unavoidable part of life. Suffering is avoidable. Now, it's really important to add a critical note here.
Okay.
While this distinction is incredibly powerful for everyday anxieties and stresses, for individuals dealing with significant trauma or complex psychological conditions, cultivating this kind of acceptance can be extremely challenging and often requires professional support. It's not about dismissing deep-seated pain.
That's a crucial clarification. Thank you. Ultimately, then, this whole deep dive seems to bring us back to the power of all we have is now, and, as Trenton puts it, making a home in the here and now.
Yeah.
What does he mean by leaving elsewhere behind?
He describes elsewhere as anywhere our mind goes. That isn't the present moment, ruminating about the past, worrying about the future. He sees this mental time travel as a primary source of anxiety and distraction, a place that doesn't actually exist tangibly,
Whereas the here and now?
is where everything real happens.
Oh.
Joy, meaning, connection, action. It all occurs right here, right now.
And
And he makes a powerful point that surrender is easy.
Easy. That sounds hard.
Well, he frames acceptance not as a difficult feat of strength, but simply as choosing to stop resisting reality. It's letting go of the fight. And importantly, it's not about being passive. If you can take action to improve things, you absolutely do. But you act from a place of present awareness, not anxious reaction. It's about finding calm within the flow.
Wow. We've really journeyed through Nick Trenton's guide, The Overthinking Cure. We've looked at moving from being reactive to proactive, using mental distance, the power of acceptance, and taking committed action based on values.
Yeah, exploring really practical tools too, from that 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique to the simple magic of using and instead of but. All designed to help you, the listener, reclaim your mind from that relentless mental chatter.
Right. And remember, this deep dive, it's about equipping you with strategies,
Yeah.
building that psychological flexibility, that resilience.
It really boils down to recognizing that while, yes, pain is part of life, that extra layer of suffering we often create through resistance, that's something we actually have the power to influence, to let go of.
So what does this all mean for you listening today? Well, the goal probably isn't to never overthink again. That might be unrealistic.
Definitely unrealistic for most of us.
Yeah. It's more about noticing those thought patterns when they arise, and having this richer toolkit to shift your perspective, to respond more constructively, more consciously.
Which leads us to maybe a final question for you to ponder. If you really leaned into living in the here and now, truly accepting what is without that constant layer of judgment, what anxieties might just dissolve for you today? What could you perhaps finally let go of?
Something to think about. Thank you for diving deep with us on this. We really hope this exploration empowers you to transform your mindset and embrace a brighter and definitely more present future.